comes from the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 21 through 23. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Let us rise and pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Have a seat. One other administrative note, just so you know, pretty much every event in the chapel will be videotaped, so just remember everything's being videotaped. Sidebar, the song we sung this morning was actually started out as a camp song. It was then converted into a marching song by Union forces. It came out of very strong abolitionist country, and it happened that they changed the words. The original words were, "Oh brother, will you follow me?" And they changed them to, "John Brown's body lies a molding in the grave." It was, John Brown was an abolitionist who's one of his death and his actions at Harper's Ferry were one of the causes of the Civil War. And a lady named Julia Ward Howe heard the song and didn't feel that was an appropriate marching song for the Union armies. So she changed the words to the words that you were just singing. What I want to talk to you about this morning is last Wednesday, you heard Mr. Carson talking, and he was going on, part of his topic was, here, Carson, you can fail without being failed. And I want to give you a little historical context and an example of someone who failed but wasn't a failure. And what I want to talk to you about is Ulysses S. Grant and his military campaigns during the Civil War. And the first point we want to make is, actually, he wasn't born Ulysses S. Grant. He went to West Point. When he got to West Point, when they were registering him, somehow the paperwork got messed up, and he was registered as Ulysses S. Grant instead of by his birth name, Hiram, Ulysses Grant. So he went in and tried to change it, and the Army, being the Army, goes, no, now you're U.S. Grant. So he basically was U.S. Grant from then on. And the U.S. actually comes into play a little bit later. He was okay at West Point, not a standout. He wasn't first in his class. He was like 21st out of 34 graduates in his graduating year. He goes off and fights in the Mexican-American War. He's doing okay in the Army, but not great. He decides that Army life after the Mexican-American War, as the 1850s are rolling around, Army life's just not for him. So he's going to leave the Army. As he's getting ready to leave the Army, he has a small problem. He's actually broke. And he will get a loan from one of his fellow officers, a guy named Simon Bolivar Buckner. And this is going to come into play in a little bit. Simon Bolivar Buckner actually loans him money so that he can get home. Grant goes and he tries he's going to have 4 different professions. He will fail at 3 of them. He's going to try to be a farmer. He fails. He tries to sell real estate. He fails. He tries to be a merchant, own a store. Store goes bankrupt. He fails. He actually, at the start of the Civil War, is working in his father's tannery with his brother. His brother's running it. He's helping manage his father's tannery. The Civil War starts. He gets called up. Now, he's a West Point grad. Everybody's looking for West Point grads because they understand the military. A lot of them, if you were generals at this time, or you came out of the Army, if you stayed in the Army, you were pretty much bumped into a really good position in either the Union or the Confederacy, or you were politically connected, and you were able to raise a body of troops, and you could come in at that rank. Grant's neither one of these. He's gotten out of the Army, and he is not politically connected. He actually joins the local militia as the drill master. He's the guy in charge of teaching everybody to march and how to use their weapons and things like that. He's going to go, he does a very good job, and he will get promoted up very quickly. And there are forts in northern Tennessee along the Kentucky border. Grant will develop a very bold campaign to take these forts, the Fort Henry and Fort Donelson. He also has a huge advantage in that the Confederate commanders, 2 of the 3 of them, in the words of one of the books I was reading, were incompetent and cowards. The 3rd commander that he's facing is his old friend, Simon Bolivar Buckner. Buckner actually ends up in command. He was the 3rd ranking guy at Fort Donelson. He ends up in command. And he goes, wait, this guy owes me money. Maybe we can, go negotiate something and get out of here. And Grant looks at it and goes, no. It's a new war. And Grant understood this. Grant was working on this concept. It's a new style war. I'm not negotiating with you. I'm not letting you guys go. It's unconditional surrender. And the name's going to kind of stick with his initials now. Grant will force the surrender of Fort Donelson. And Grant comes out, he's looking pretty good. He's conducted a daring campaign, captured 2 forts from the Confederacy. He's looking really good. And then he goes to Shiloh. At Shiloh, he doesn't do anything really wrong, but he doesn't do a bunch of things right either. He doesn't put out his pickets, guys that will let him know when the enemy's approaching. They don't put up defenses. Simple things that modern armies are taught to do as soon as they get there. There are questions and debates about why it didn't happen. It didn't happen. The Confederates attack. Grant's forces are driven back. On the first day of battle, the Confederates think they've won a great victory. Union reinforcements arrive. They will drive the Confederates back. So both sides claim victory at Shiloh, but Grant's kind of put in a position of, yeah, it's your fault. This will be, up until that point, the bloodiest battle in U.S. history. I believe the number is about 13,000 Union casualties killed there. The press wants Grant taken. His other generals are using the colloquialism, throwing him under the bus. They're saying it's his fault. Lincoln's like, no, not yet. I'm not going to fire him. He fights. Lincoln has a problem with his commanders in the East. You guys that are taking Civil War, hear all about that. But Grant fights, so he kind of has a backer. Other commanders that are there will get moved into the Eastern campaign, the important theater. Grant gets stuck in the West. Not only is he stuck in the West, he's given the mission to try to figure out how to take the city of Vicksburg. Grant's going to think on it, ponder on it, and it's going to be painful. It's going to take him over 6 months to figure out how to get down to take the city. He's going to try several campaigns. If you've never been to this part, it's Bayou Swampland that he's marching through. Grant's going to actually come up with a daring plan, depending upon which side you were on at the time. It's either going to be called Grant's Canal or Grant's Ditch, to bypass the Mississippi River so that he can get gunboats down below Vicksburg and then attack. It doesn't work. Just about everything he tries up until May of 1863 fails. His forces are pushed back. If they attack, they can't get through the swamps. It's just hard. Once he gets across the Mississippi in April and May of 1863, he gets across the Mississippi River, things work really wonderful for him. He's able to move rapidly. He captures the city of Vicksburg. He turns his forces and starts working on winning the war in the West. Lincoln sees this, and in 1864 will bring Grant east and actually put him in charge of all the Union armies. Grant will position himself primarily with the Army of the Potomac. And as we said, Grant realizes that this is a different kind of war now. Grant goes in and he realizes he must defeat the Confederate Army. His predecessors like to hold terrain. We want to take this town. We want to take this river. We want to hold this crossing. Grant goes, I need to defeat the Confederate Army. In doing so, he is going to be called a butcher, because in 1 month, he will lose 65,000 men. The advantage he has is that he costs the Confederates 50,000 men. His 65,000 men can be replaced. The Confederates can't. But it does tend to hurt Grant that he's called a butcher. Grant will develop a really, really, really good plan for winning the Civil War. And he throws it into effect, and his commanders can't make it happen. So he's going to have to live with that, and he works his way through it. He will eventually become the winning commander. It just takes him a little over a year to do it. It is a very hard struggle as they go forward.